Hollywood, full of lights and entertainment, filled with beautiful people of all different shapes and sizes, races and cultures. Stars and starlets everywhere you look. A magical place. A place where beautiful people can meet on a whim and become an item overnight. Beautiful people of diversity who become power couples and the target of everyone's awe and envy. Couples that people admire and become posters of star life and romance. Then there's me, Holly Phelps, a small town white girl who grew up in East Texas, far from Hollywood. My family started out as a nuclear family unit, mom, dad, and 2 brothers, all living in a household in White House, Texas. My mom gave birth to all 3 of us at home with no drugs and with the help of a midwife from West Virginia. So I guess you could say since birth, I wasn't a part of the norm around here. My mom was born and raised in Pennsylvania and came to Texas in her 20s to do her own thing and to get away from the expectations of her family. My dad was born in Nevada, who came to Texas around the age of 16 due to his father having to relocate from Salt Lake City to a lower altitude due to health problems. They met in Dallas, where my mom was a taxi cab driver and my dad was a traveling pianist, and long story short, they fell in love and had me and my brothers. This traditional nuclear unit didn't last long. At the age of 5, my parents divorced and thus began living the life with a single mom who remained single from then on out. We relocated to a trailer park further in the heart of White House, and my dad moved to Longview and remained absent for a year to recover from the pain of losing his family. My experience with culture started at a young age. My mom would often take us to visit my dad's mother, who also lived in White House. The earliest memories I have of visiting my grandmother involved a foreign exchange student named Natsumi from Japan. She lived with her for over a year. At the time, I didn't understand the concept of learning overseas and consistently referred to her as my cousin. I genuinely believed this, as she always seemed a part of the family. I remember going to school and proudly telling my friends about my Japanese cousin, which often resulted in confusion and ridiculing comments. After a couple years, around the age of 8, my mom, brothers, and I moved to a farm outside of Tyler. Here we were considered part of the school district of Winona, Texas. Basically, we moved from small town to smaller. Little did I know that small town life involved small minds as well. Winona's school district was primarily white, with Black and Hispanic populations being about even in number. Even though the diversity numbers were small, I was immersed within these cultures right away due to my involvement in sports. I didn't know it at the time, but sports would be my doorway to diversity for the rest of my life. As a result, sports would also be my doorway that led to conflict. Due to basketball and other athletic programs such as track, volleyball, and cheerleading, I quickly became surrounded by other cultures at Winona. As it turned out, all of my best friends were Latina, all from different Latin countries such as Colombia, Mexico, and El Salvador. To this day, these girls are my very best friends. I started to notice that I stood out in this regard, as I did not have such close relationships with people of my own race. This I didn't mind. I was open to all types of friendships and relationships. At the age of 16, my life changed in a very difficult way. Due to high school sports and traveling to other schools, I met a boy from a school in our district on a volleyball trip. From then, we started communicating regularly, and I found myself beginning to like him more and more each day. This caused a lot of anxiety inside. See, the thing was, this boy was black. All growing up, I remembered my mom making comments that people should date their own races. This often confused me as my mom didn't consider herself a racist person. Time went by and finally, one day my mom came into my room to find me crying. She sat on my bed and asked me what was wrong. I was scared to tell her, but she insisted. I told her that I liked a black boy and I couldn't help it. She chuckled a little and surprisingly acted like it was no big deal. She proceeded to tell me that she had dated some black men in college, which surprised me and instantly relieved my heart. This relief didn't last long. My mom then expressed to me that she would mainly be concerned with what it meant to others. My mom said that she was okay with me liking whoever I wanted to like, but to be prepared for how others would treat me. She said my life wouldn't be the same, and that I would receive a lot of hate from others. She said some white boys who might have liked me before would never like me again, that I would burn bridges with future potential relationships. This news hit me hard and I was angry, but she couldn't be more right. Despite her warning, I started dating the boy from the other school. It didn't last long, but quickly everyone around me found out and I was perceived in a whole new light. I started noticing the whispers, the pointing, the excuses not to hang out. It was very difficult. I couldn't understand why dating someone who looked different would cause me to be treated differently. Unfortunately, it was only going to get worse. My junior year, I got close to a senior in my trigonometry class. This boy was also black. I was nervous about it going any further than friends from what I had experienced from dating the black boy from another school. I was conflicted. I remember asking my dad inconspicuously about dating someone from a different race. I'd never asked my dad about this topic before, and he did not know about my previous relationship. His response was simple and relaxing. Well, what are you going to do? Ignore them your whole life? You can't help how you feel. With that, I decided to risk the ridicule and follow my heart. Life got a lot harder for me after that decision. Despite the boy I was with being one of the most intelligent guys in the school, an awesome athlete, and very sweet, his skin color was what people cared about. The whispers, pointing, and avoidance got worse. People were outright calling me names and using some of the worst interracial slurs that you could imagine. One day, I was sitting outside with my boyfriend, and all of a sudden I got hit on the side of my face with an orange a white boy threw at full force. I was stunned for a moment, and a splitting headache immediately followed. In my daze, I picked it up, walked over, and confronted the white country boy that had threw it. I asked him angrily if he threw it and why. He wouldn't even look at me in the eyes, just kept saying he didn't. What probably hurt even worse was previous white boys I dated calling me horrible names, their parents as well. I knew that my image had permanently changed, and this sent me into my first depression. Through time, I slowly recovered and learned that some people would just not be willing to think like me when it came to race, ethnicity, and culture. Of course, leaving small town Winona helped, but the judgment never ended. This isn't a fairy tale story of an account on how I beat discrimination. I just learned to think in terms of a bigger picture. May it never end. Unfortunately, I had to leave some people I had been close to behind in this process. But at the end of the day, I can say I am now at peace with whomever I decide to date or be friends with. All I can do is tell my story to others and hope that somehow there is encouragement on their part in experiencing diversity. Sometimes you have to endure what you hate in order to accomplish what you love.
Well, it's not for glory, I'll tell you true.